Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, lax rats alike, welcome back to another episode of the Crease Dive. Today is Monday, June 3rd. Week one of the PLL season has wrapped up, and Jeff Teat has already locked down the scoring title. I'm Jordy from Barstool. With me, as always, we've got Dukes. Dukes coming from us from a train right now. Planes, trains, and automobiles. That's what Dukes does over there. We've got Ness, intern Ness. Fresh off a busy weekend. These two, you guys were in Albany. Looks like Dukes is kind of in the midst of some transport right now. Ness, you went from Albany to a alumni game for the Chatham Cougars, so you've been all over the place. How you feeling after a busy week of lax?
I'm feeling pretty good. I was hurting on Sunday, hand up. I was down bad on Sunday. I tried to roll with the big dogs on Saturday, and I was acting like a puppy on Sunday. So, but I'm feeling much better today. It's Monday, fresh start to a new week. Weather's been beautiful. Got the traveling out of me. It's summertime, Jordy. We got the best of the best playing lacrosse, and we just get to sit back and watch them go to work. So I'm doing well. Sunburnt as hell, though.
Yeah. Anyone who's watching this on Rumble or YouTube, you kind of see that's Ness. I've kind of figured that you get like a deep reddish purple throughout the summer, but it's the first week of June and you're already there, so I can only imagine what we're in store with later on here. Obviously, like we're gonna talk. So Dukes, just a little peek behind the curtain again. He's in the middle of some commuting, so he'll jump on shortly. But I do want to talk about the trip to Albany. You guys were there for a few days of training camp before things got started. So obviously we'll get more into that once Dukes gets here. But Nesher thought that was your first PLL training camp, right? So how'd that go for you?
It was a great time. Seeing everything behind the scenes was like super cool to kind of be there as they're setting up for the weekend. Seeing the players like practice, seeing them kind of go about their like day. Super nice guys, Lax guys are lax guys. They're easy. So it was fun. Campus was really nice up in Albany. They put us in the dorms, so that was a good time as well. Content gold mine, as me and Dukes like to call it. But I was really happy I got to go up there. I was there for a good 4.5 days. Wish I could have stayed Sunday, but had to come back for that alumni game, which I'll touch on that later. I'm not too proud of my performance. So overall, great week.
Injuries. So we'll go through the stats of your alumni game a little bit later, but the number one stat that everyone wants to know right now: injuries 1-0. Where are we at?
We're at 0, and I wish
that's a success. That's a success.
No major injuries ever wanted, but I would have liked to come out a little more nicked up. To say I wish I would have done. I had more to give. I'm saving it. I'm bottling it in for later because it hurts.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's jump into some of these games because speaking of guy leaving it out there for first week of action, there were some bodies flying around in day one of the PLL season. I also have a little something to say about the officiating of the games. We can kind of get into that a little bit later. Yeah. But let's touch base on some of these games. Dukes will jump in whenever he's off of his train and he's in a spot where he can join us, and then we'll talk a little bit more about. Oh, there he is, right there.
Back. Welcome back, dude.
It's the Garden City 5G now. I'm back. I heard a little bit of that, but I don't know what you guys did or did not talk about, so we won't get into it. But all I'd like to add is a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we were about to jump over to talk about the games, but I kind of want to talk a little bit more about how the week in Albany went. From the sounds of it, it sounds like we got a couple goalie challenges coming our way. Maybe we also got some great man on the field interviews with some technical difficulties there, so we can kind of get into a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, goalie challenges. We shot a lot of content. We vlogged for the first time, so we got a lot of stuff coming out of Albany training camp. Did some man on the stadium. Just asking the people who the Tewaaraton should have been. A lot of people thought Pat Cav. A lot of the younger kids had no idea what the Tewaaraton even was, so that was exciting. But yeah, I think you may or may not have seen it if you listen to this podcast. But I asked Connor Schellenberger on the field when I was wasted, who's better, 2022 Maryland or 2024 Notre Dame? His answer, really no hesitation, and I didn't have to budge it out. He said 24 Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, I think listen, recency bias is there. So Virginia lost to Maryland in the quarterfinals that year, right? If I'm correct.
They got smacked twice, yeah.
Yeah, so they got crushed in the regular season and then got in the quarterfinals, but then they got spanked by Notre Dame in the ACC tournament, but they didn't have to lose to them in the actual tournament. So that I would expect Shelley to have a little bit more of a diplomatic answer there, but I think he definitely, considering that he won a championship over Maryland at one point in his career, I feel like there's probably a little bit more of a nice like fuck you towards Maryland than he has towards Notre Dame. I'd imagine that played into it a little bit.
We don't have to talk about it too. I wasn't too surprised by his answer. I do think that them not being undefeated obviously adds to the argument a little bit. But the one thing I want to add about this Notre Dame, because this is the last time I'll ever talk about it, I think in 5 years, once these freshmen graduate, we'll look back and be like, that's when we'll be like, holy hell. Is this just like, how did this team even lose in overtime? Like, I truly believe in, like, deep down in my bones that Sean Light is going to be the best defender in Notre Dame history over Matt Landis.
I had a conversation with Chris Conlon, who was the starting defender for the Notre Dame team, and he said, I was like, you guys kind of ruined the tournament. It was no fun, like, watching you guys play. He's because we could have played 30 more games and we weren't going to lose. I was like, yeah, well, that's sure as hell what it felt like from a spectator's point of view. So they definitely felt that way. So,
well, I'll tell you what, while people are still able to debate whether or not 2022 Maryland or 2024 Notre Dame, I will say, like, that's still up for debate. You can make an argument, whatever you want. I will say, I think that we now have a definitive answer of who the Tewaaraton should have been. Based on, so Dukes, you're not at the computer right now, so we're not going to be able to bring this one up for anyone who's watching this on Rumble or YouTube. But the latest photo that I saw of Pat Cav, I think TLN tweeted it out. This man just in it looks like he's in a jacuzzi with the boys. Nothing like getting a nice little warm soak with the fellas. He's got a dart in hand, the national championship trophy in the other, and that it's the most alpha photo that we've seen out of college lacrosse in quite some time. That photo alone, worthy of the Tewaaraton. So Liam Entman, unbelievable career at Notre Dame, 2-time national champion, one of the greatest goalies that we've ever seen in college lacrosse. Unless he's tarps off in that jacuzzi with the boys with the dart in mouth, that Tewaaraton it belongs to its rightful owner right now.
That was one of the most badass pictures I've ever seen. Almost like it belongs right in a D3 scrapbook, to say the least. So I still believe Edelman should have had it, but it is that picture. The picture made me really start questioning it for sure.
I mean, Sigs are having such a moment between. I don't know if you guys saw Charlie Hall, the women's golfer on the LPGA tour, just rolling around Lancaster Country Club during their last tournament this past weekend. Again, dart in mouth. I think she was seen a couple times, just going full John Daly, just letting it rip. I think she said something too along the lines of like, yeah, I'm going to start smoking cigarettes so that I can stop vaping. So cigarettes having an unbelievable moment right now. So between Charlie Hall at the LPGA and Pat Cav right now, like, yeah, cigs are so back.
Yeah, don't even forget the Waterdogs ripping the cigs in the locker room after the PLL championship 2 years ago too.
Yeah, Ness, that's why you're the best in the business. Just pulling up that photo on your phone like that. It might not be a tech guy, but you're a locker room guy. Get the job done. Waterdogs kind of started the whole thing, kind of like you, Dukes. They were a couple years ahead of their time. There he goes again. He'll pop back on. But all right, so so good week out of you guys in Albany. I can't really tell. Are you guys trying to stay a little under wraps of what can we say who the goalie challenge was with, or are we kind of keeping that a secret? Little tease, little hang on, maybe check it out on our Twitter or other socials to get a sneak peek of it, or what?
I'll say this: there's a lot of goalie challenge content between the two of us. There's definitely some professionals involved. Like I think
you're not supposed to say that because I gave away what we did, Nestler.
No, they don't know nothing. We got the cheese out there.
You just spoiled the first one.
No, we're good.
You didn't spoil it.
I'll say this is just for the diehard listeners. Me and Nestler had a goalie challenge to see if he was able to do a goalie challenge.
And I didn't do any. So now you're blowing it again that you won.
Oh, well, Dukes, you just spoiled that. I didn't pick up any of that from Ness. Dukes is the spoiler.
He said lots of goalie challenges between the two of us. I'll say this. Great look for club guy.
Well, I mean, someone had to pick up the club scene after our boy Sterling Hupp got left off the Cannons roster. And you know what? I mean, Cannons might need them. That could be a good little segue into these games here because Cannons offense looked couldn't get much going. Obviously, going up against the Atlas, who are an absolute wagon right now. That was the second game of Saturday. But let's start off chronologically here. We had a rematch of the 2023 PLL Championship between the Utah Archers and the Philadelphia Waterdogs. Waterdogs coming off of a championship loss in 2023, coming after a championship series final loss in February. Thought that they'd come out with a little more bark, a little more bite, but holy shit, the Archers just kind of they just shit kicked them around for a little while. Obviously, things got a little tighter there, and it came down to the final possession. But for the longest time, the Archers were just pee whacking the Dogs. They were dog walking them all afternoon until kind of late in that second half. That's when the Waterdogs finally caught some life. They were losing faceoffs left and right. I mean, listen, I love Dylan Ward. Probably a top 3 goalie on the planet, the entire planet. There's 8 billion people in this world. He's like the 3rd best goalie. He didn't have his greatest afternoon, at least not to start that game. So the Waterdogs able to kind of climb their way back in. Big for goal differential to just make that a 1-goal game, but really that was the Archers from start to almost finish.
Yeah, I mean, we were right there, and it was a lot like the championship game. In my opinion, where the Archers kind of controlled almost the entire game, but it got later and later in that game, and Dukes just kept saying this game's not over, and he was very right. I will say this: there were a lot of clock issues, and they addressed some of the clock issues, but I know for a fact that there were times in the beginning of the game where the ball rolled out of bounds and the clock just kept running, and they didn't address that until like the end of the first quarter. So I'm very certain that they're missing seconds from this ball game. So we'll see.
Yeah, and that was a difference in the game was the seconds. Yeah, but it's week 1 for everybody. So I'm not gonna shit on anyone that's running the clock or whatnot. It's week 1 for me. That we missed the Schellenberger audio. So it's week 1 for everybody. When it comes to the Waterdogs, you can never count them out. They are built on comebacks. I think one point to make is I didn't think that having no pole would affect them as badly as it did. Because the 32-second shot clock, I was like, you're going to have to score very fast. I did not think that the Archers were going to score as fast and quick as they did. They scored on a lot of those 32-second possessions. And we had Mike Siss on the Mitchell Pelkey pod yesterday, and he made a great point. With the 32-second shot clock, there's not one offense better in the league than the Archers. So they were accustomed to come out to a great lead against the Waterdogs. I think you definitely have to get a Fogo moving forward. But I didn't take anything away from the Waterdogs because of that game. And honestly, like as bad as Dylan Ward played, like I know there's no moral victories in this league, but man, you got to take a moral victory if you can take anything away from that game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like kind of par for the course. Like we're not used to seeing Dylan Ward come out and be incredible to start. Most of the time, we're not even really accustomed to seeing him playing in the start of the season, right? The Colorado Mammoth have had a few really good years in the NLL, and they've made it deep into the playoffs. So feel like the past couple of years we've seen DeLuca start the season and Wardo come in a couple weeks later. So it kind of always takes them, it seems like a little while to kind of change over from box mode into field mode. The only thing is that's like a tough argument to make when the guy between the pipes on the other end of the field is doing the same thing. And Brett Dobson looked ridiculous on Saturday. So, I mean, Dauber is unreal. Would he have a 67 or, about a 67% save percentage? He made 22 saves on the day, none bigger than those 2 last saves in the final seconds of regulation. So, I mean, Brett Dobson, we've been high on Brett Dobson from the get-go here. But this is a big, and we'll kind of see what happens with Blaze, because anyone who watched on Sunday knows that Blaze went down with an injury. We haven't heard too much about that, but Blaze is kind of missing a little bit of time this season. That kind of opens up the floodgates to someone else stepping in there and being the best goalie in the league. And I think Brett Dobson is clearly in that conversation.
The good news is I totally agree. I said after the game when I was drunk or getting drunk, I said, Brett Dobson, best goalie in the world. That's because I forgot who Blaze Reardon was. But I do think Dauber's right in that conversation. I do believe, though, that good news is Blaze, I think Paul said he suplexed his knee, which he's done before, which is just like a dislocation. So he could be playing next week. Now, Paul's not a doctor, but I think that
he's not.
If you're going off the most banged up people of all time in PL history, Paul was as banged up as they come. So it was like promising hearing from a player. Like if he said like he could play next week and that is the injury, then like maybe the longest it's gonna go is like 2 weeks, because a PLL season losing Blaze Reardon in week 1 would suck.
I agree.
Well, but then he got Austin Kaut, the pride of Delco, stepping in between the pipes, and Cowder had himself a great showing for the Chaos, able to settle in there after a couple shots and help give the Chaos which crazy to hear, their first week 1 win ever. I think I heard on the broadcast. I think that was the first time that they won week 1. So
it's
that's
crazy.
Like it's an insane stat. But yeah, so didn't want to go too far into this episode without giving a quick shout out to Austin Kaut stepping in there. We'll get to more on that game a little bit later. Just to wrap up Waterdogs Archers, the Waterdogs were able to kind of figure things out towards the end of that game. They scored the final 7 goals of the game. I do think just kind of overthinking it a little bit without going with a Fogo. I know that Bill Tierney said something about like Stathakis will be on the roster. It's just he wasn't able to be on the roster for week 1 because of Denver's academic schedule, and that makes sense. Like I don't know, you kind of have to figure something out though. If you can't use a pole on the face, like maybe you double pole in the wings, like just to make sure a guy like Sisselberger isn't able to just go out and just create offense. Like Sis is great. Sis is awesome. You probably shouldn't allow him to create as much offense as he was creating early on in that game. Things settled down for the Waterdogs, but at the end of the day, Utah got out to too hot of a start. That's a really good team. They were making the most out of their opportunities and held on for the end. So anything else to wrap up on that one before we move on to the second game of the day?
Yeah, the one thing I want to say is just I also think Bill Tierney was like, old coach, older guy, Princeton, probably, I would imagine, somewhat recruited Courier from getting like years right. Like I don't even know if the years match up, but he's probably like, oh yeah, Zach is a Fogo. Like maybe his brain's just like, oh, Zach faced off at Princeton, like he could win a couple. But did the face-offs? I didn't watch a replay yet. How were the face-offs in the second half? Because it really did feel like the Waterdogs completely controlled the tempo of that game in the second half.
Well, Sisselberger only lost 2. I don't know if anyone even took another one for their team.
But was there a different strategy in the sense that, like, what did the Waterdogs do on the wings? What did they do in that first 32-second possession? Because that to me is, if you can erase that 32-second possession without having a Fogo, then that 32-second possession, that losing that faceoff doesn't really matter from my eyes.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Just thinking back, like it was more just like the Archers kind of went cold a little bit. That's what it felt like. Like they just weren't getting the bounces. I think Wardo kind of like everyone kind of settled in after getting punched in the face in that first half, which is a good sign probably not a very sustainable strategy for the rest of the season to just get like crushed in the face in the first half and then finally wake up and get it going in the second. So probably something that they would like to avoid moving forward. But yeah, I mean, I think they kind of just settled in after that.
Last point of the game. One, we could see people like Connor Farrell getting on the trade block because you have like Luke Weirman out on the Outlaws. And two, this is just one overarching thought that I had with the faceoff position. Like, there's how many dominant faceoff guys would you say there are in the league? Like, I'd say like Trevor, TD, Sis.
We'll see with Weirman.
Yeah. Like PD Nardello when he's healthy. It's like if you don't have somebody that's just gonna like absolutely like if you're like a Stephen Kelly for the Archers a couple years ago.
Right.
Depending on the matchup, if you're gonna just throw out Stephen Kelly out there who's gonna win like no offense to Stephen Kelly, like 20% of the faceoffs, like I'd rather just prepare for defense.
Yeah, I mean you just have to really
you know what I'm saying, right?
No, I get what you're saying. It's just that some of these guys are just so good that like even Stephen Kelly, who's like not going to win you faceoffs, is at least going to like slow down a guy like Sis by like a half second, and then that half second that you slow him down, like that could be the difference of Courier landing a check on him, while he's taking it down on the break. Like if you just have a guy who's just getting absolutely tossed at the faceoff stripe against some of these guys, like they get out quick. They get out so you can prepare for defense all you want. You can say no breaks all you want, but if they get that ball out like as soon as that whistle hits, it's tough to stop these guys.
I did see like Courier during the game, like not slow down Sis after the faceoff, but like they were clearly planning on being like, let's just pop it so then I could like trail him to try to do like a trail check to like be on his hands, which I think worked like a couple times if I'm remembering correctly. But
yeah, I talked to Scarpello, and he was like, when he went to go take the face off, he was just like, when they blow the whistle, I'm just like sprinting backwards, like I'm just not getting beat, like straight to the goal. I was like, you're kind of just figuring out where you're gonna go from there.
I think you definitely have to get Fogo for the Waterdogs, but like I don't know. I do think the Archers, I will say one thing, as good as Dauber was, I do think that they, like, I came in being like, I think the biggest question mark is the defense. And I didn't leave being disappointed with the defense, like the overarching game. But, I mean, second half, I definitely was like, all right, they got to clean some shit up.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's real quick, let's talk about the best team in the world right now. Let's talk about the New York Atlas. Let's talk about how right this podcast was about Connor Schellenberger being the best player on the planet that's not named Jeff Teat right now. I mean, this Atlas team, holy smokes. They come out here. So we've got Atlas and Cannon's second game of the day. Atlas come away with a 19-12 win. And it was like every single time the ball was in Connor Schellenberger's stick, ended up being in the back of the net. This was everything that you want out of a PLL offense. Just unbelievable players making the game look so unbelievably easy. This offense is absolutely terrifying. And I think I have no other choice right now than to be the biggest Jeff Teat stan on the planet.
Yeah, they beat the living shit out of the Cannons. I was pulling for the Cannons hard, obviously, and it never felt close after that first quarter. Every time the Atlas got a big lead, the Cannons would score to make it a little smaller, and the Atlas would go down and score right away. I think it also hurt the Cannons just not having a face-off guy again. Like I think
100%.
And I think it just was that same thing where it's like the Waterdogs are like the comeback kids, and you kind of knew they were going to do it no matter what. But when the Cannons went down, I was like, well, now they're just in a spot where if the Atlas are going to score every time Connor Schellenberger touches the ball, then you're never going to come back. So,
okay, two things. The Atlas look really fucking good. Two, from just the Atlas Cannons game, I'm not taking anything away from the Cannons just yet because I think still early in the year, like again, Connor Farrell could be on the trade block. I do think that if they get more possession, the Cannons didn't touch the ball
ever,
like ever. And again, that was like my thinking going into week one was like, all right, how big is the 32-second shot clock going to be? I mean, the Atlas took full advantage of it. When you got someone like Trevor Baptiste, who's just going to dominate anybody in the world, and you're giving it to Connor Schellenberger, Jeff Teat, like, yeah, Dox Aiken, talk about a fucking weekend for the kid coming back from pro football. Like, looked unbelievable. Everybody up and down the Atlas roster looked great. Now, without taking anything major away from the Atlas, I think rightfully so, they are right now should be having the championship league talks. But the amount of times that I fall for a team or that people will get on a team right away after week one and be like, wow, this is the championship team. I'm not going to be like they're going to run the table or anything.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like this game against the Cannons was like just an unreal display, right? So you've got the offense humming, you've got Baptiste winning every single face-off, and you got Troutner looking incredible between the pipes. So like the biggest issue right now with me for the Atlas is that Tim Troutner is playing so good that we might not get a chance to see Liam Entman that much this summer. Like that's a great issue to have. Like that game was like a holy shit, the Atlas are so goddamn good. The one that really sold, like that second win really, really sold me on that this team like is going to be for real and is going to be in all those championship talks the whole entire summer, because you have that such a quick turnaround, right? You got 24 hours to turn around. You got to go out and play another game. You're playing against the Whip Snakes, who, I mean, yeah, are the Whip Snakes coming up close on washed alert? Maybe. I'm not going to put them fully there yet, but they're getting there. Either way, they still have unbelievable roster, and for the Atlas to kind of get up really big on the Whip Snakes, but then still find a way to hold on and win that game, even when the Whip Snakes were kind of clawing their way back into that game, like to hold on to that lead after playing a game the day before. Like that's just probably one of the more impressive wins that we'll see this summer.
The Whips at camp, I don't know like what teams were like buzzing really like out of camp or whatever. I think the Whip Snakes definitely had their question marks all week long. But one thing that was an interesting argument was, did it help or hurt the Atlas to have 2 games right away? Because the one side would be like, you have a full week of training camp, then you have 2 games, you're going to be exhausted. The other side would be like, you had a full week of training camp, team camaraderie is at an all-time high, you're locked in together, the offensive sets are flowing, and you got two back-to-back games. That's your advantage. So I think that people are having an argument all week, does it help or hurt the Cannon, the Atlas? I think it definitely, for sure, leaving 2-0 kind of proved that it helped them. But that was an interesting argument.
I thought for sure it was going to hurt them. I was like 19-man roster. Like, yeah, you might, 1 or 2 guys might sit Sunday, 2 fresh legs, but I was like, they're just not going to have the legs week of the training camp. When I looked at the scoreboard on the TV and saw it was 6-0 on Sunday, Atlas, I was like, holy shit, this is the best. This is the best team ever assembled in my entire life. And I think it definitely helped them looking back on it. Big overlook on Nest end there. So I totally was on the other side where I thought it was going to hurt them, but I think it's pretty obvious it didn't. So
I don't know if it necessarily like helped it. Like, I just think that they're so good that they got up. Like I don't think that they got up 6-0 because, oh, they already had a game and this and that. Like, I just think like, I think that they're just that much better. Right. Like,
I'm still holding out. I do think they're really good, but like, it is like, if you give if the Cannons get a face-off guy and then you're giving that offense the same amount of touches, like last year, they were the best offense of all time efficiency wise. Like, I think again, it just comes down to touches and efficiency. You got Jeff Teat, who got 50 plus touches against the Cannons, and you got like Pat Cav, who's coming out of the box, gets like 17. You get like Asher Knowlton, who has half the touches of Jeff Teat. Like, you need to give these guys the ball in their stick. When they have the ball in their stick, good things happen. And I think that
can I say something?
What?
At risk, I don't want, it's not recency bias. 2, at risk of being a hater, Pacav and Jeff Teat aren't the same level though. Like
Yeah,
Jeff Teat.
no, I agree. Jeff Teat never won a Tour-a-thon, so like,
like Jeff Teat, like you give that offense as many touches as every other offense. Like I just think that it's so silly that you have two of the best feeders to come through the game in the past, God knows how long, in Teat and Schellenberger. You have a guy who can finish the ball as well as Andrew Dixon. You have a guy who can get to, like, we're seeing Jeff Teat this weekend, like just he took Garrett Epple for a ride to the cage on set. Like, dude, took hit, like had him on his back, little monkey on his back, took Garrett Epple to the cage. So we're seeing that out of Teat. We're seeing them just, be able to find everybody inside. And then Dox looks like he's probably going to be one of the best midfielders in the league, if not the best midfielder in the league. Like, I just think, yeah, it was one weekend. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but like, I think that they're just every single, like those three guys right there, I think could be the best player on any other team. I think Jeff Teat could be the best player on any team. I think that Schellenberger could be the best player on any team. I think that Dox Aiken could be the best midfielder on any team.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know if I necessarily agree, but I don't disagree. I don't know. It really comes down to just adjustments are going to have to be made after week one. I mean, championships are made in week one, and I really will never ever agree with the sentiment that the team with the best players wins the championship. I think if they did what they did, like, I think you also have to beat like championship level teams. Do it. I know the whip stakes are a championship level team, but like this is not the same whip stakes from 4 years ago. Do it against the Waterdogs. Do it against the Archers. Do it against fucking Blaze Reardon, and then I'll be like, all right, like now I'm buying into you. I'm not going to buy in just yet. I think still adjustments are going to be made. Rosters are still forming. That's just where I stand.
What adjustments should be made for the like, where do you put Pat Cav moving forward? I don't think that having him running out of the box was a great call to start the season.
No, but like I see, like this is what it just comes down to for me. Like, yes, they kick the shit out of the Cannons. So I'm high. I still am high on them. But I think the Cannons are looking at out of this week and they're like, all right, we need a face-off guy. Like we need to give our offense like this isn't just like an opinion of mine. They were the best offense in PLL history last year, right? So like if you give them possessions, I believe that they'll be able to compete at the highest level. With Pat Cav, what are you going to do? If Pat Cav shows up, like, let's call it what it is, hungover on 2 hours of sleep from like winning the Tour-a-thon, partying all week with the national championship, like, yeah, you're not going to be able to just put him in like at attack. You have to put him outside of the box. He doesn't really know the offense yet. And now, like, that was their only move, in my opinion. I do think he can be effective out of the box. Like in college, towards the end of you saw him dodge from up top a little bit, and he was effective. I just think judging Pat Cav in the pros, I'm not saying anyone did, just like overall, just like Twitter circles, like when he's tired, hungover, hasn't slept, is crazy.
The Cannons will be all right. I don't know what to do with Pat Cavanaugh either.
He's going to be an attackman.
Yeah, but like,
he's got to be an attackman.
But is he going to, like, when do they make that change? Is he going to be there next week when we see him play? You think?
I would think so. I just don't know whose spot he's going to take. Like, do you want to kick Matt off the attack line? Like, can you do that? Do you put Marcus out of the box? Which Marcus has shown that he can go out of the box. But, like, he was also, like, an MVP candidate last year. Asher, love the guy. He ain't running up and down that field. That's a full ass lugging it up and down the field. That's
I think you go Marcus out of the box. You throw Pat down at attack. I think he's going to be a lot more effective. I think that he's going to be a lot more effective at this level right now from behind the cage and down low than he will be from dodging from up top.
Yeah, I agree, and I think just his game will translate very well to the pro game. I think he's almost like a better, more effective in other areas of the game, but I think he's a better rider, Garnsey.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and we love Ryder. We're high on Ryder, so
and a better
praise for Pacav. Yeah, well, I mean, the best two feeders right now, again, play for the Atlas. 2 games on the weekend for Jeff Teat. He has 11 assists, 18 points. Connor Schellenberger has 5 assists, 3 goals for 8 points on the weekend, and just his one game that he played on the weekend sat out the second one. Makes sense. Guys had a big season, wrapped up championship weekend. Probably didn't have the legs to play that second game. They're saying it was a groin injury. Who knows what's going on with that, but probably just, probably needed the day off. But those two, between Schellenberger finding T or both of them finding Xander, it just looked like a video game out there. Like it just looks so effortless for both of them. It just, they see an opening, they see a window open for half a second, and somehow they just snap the ball, quick little wrist flick, and that ball is just right on target. And Xander knows what to do with it. Teat knows what to do with it. So really fun offense to watch with just those three. And then just incredible to see Doc Aiken come back, not miss a step. Not that you would really expect it. He took a year off, and he's a insane player who didn't take a year off to sit on the couch. He took a year off to get his body right for pro football. So it's not like he was just like hanging out. Maybe he didn't have the stick in his hands as much, but still one of the best athletes in the league, and then can just shoot the shit out of the ball.
And as much as I was saying, like, hold out on the Atlas and just like because again, rosters are forming. The craziest part about the Atlas, which I didn't mention, is like, you got Jake Stevens, who's one of my favorite players to watch. Right? I think he has a very, I think it was Adam Lamberti, who came on our pod for the draft thing, who I agree with 100%. He has like a Zach Currier-esque game, which he's going to bring to the Atlas. And then you also have Peyton Cormier. But that's almost like, how do you take Xander off? Because there's no way that Cormier can come out of the box, in my opinion. And I think one of the best.
You have him out there for the power play.
Agreed,
He's but the power play guy.
I don't even know if you want to waste a spot like that in the PLL, because Xander, to me, did something for the Atlas offense that Cormier, I'm not sure does. Cormier moves well, has good hands. You should see, if you watch the game,
Xander gets wall.
Yeah, and he's just running in circles, tiring out his guy, finding open lanes, which I'm not so sure Cormier could do. Like what Xander was able to do for the attack line, match up with Schellenberger, find opening holes with Teat. And especially, Shelley didn't play game 2, and Dylan Malloy, what a game out of the former Tewaaraton guy. So,
Xander does that fish hook where he'll come around X, fish hook through the creek, but he'll just drag it up so much higher than a guy like Cormier can. If Cormier drifts a little too high, he's not losing anyone, but somehow the Slim Reaper just kind of slinks away up there, and then all of a sudden turns around. The moment he turns around, the ball's right on his ear. He's able to finish it right there. Dude, he had the one where, so I think it was the second game, and that exact motion where I think maybe Baptiste won the face off, threw it down to Teat. Xander kind of curled around from X, and where he got he was probably 7 yards where he caught the ball on the run, and then still fading away, body moving away from the cage, probably another 2-3 yards. So probably a 10-yard fade away, right off the catch. Put one in the back of the net. Underrated power on the shot to be able to hit that fading away. So I don't know. I love the Atlas, and I'm putting all of my stock in the, I'm not diversifying my portfolio whatsoever. All my eggs in one basket, and that basket is the New York Atlas.
I'm gonna make a live decision week 3 on who I have my preseason pick, and then I'll probably have my week 3, week 7 picks. It really is just this league is just who's injured, who had a good mid-season trade, what's the rosters finally look like, because I really do firmly, because we're gonna get into this game. There is an all-star face-off guy who didn't play yesterday, who's you could trade for. There's gonna be trades made. Will Manny's out there. Rosters and teams are just gonna look so different. It's I don't know. I just don't want to overreact, but the Atlas by far had the most fun weekend. And one more thing I want to add about them. What did we see with the Whipsticks a couple of years ago? The Whipsticks just formed they're basically national champion team with the guys that couldn't win it, Burnlaw, Earhart. Then you saw they were successful. great job by Presley to just be like, yo, we should just get 2021 Virginia and just put them like that's the success. Like if the Cannons want to win some championships, go get Devin McClain, go get Chris Cav, go get this Notre Dame and just run it back. So I don't know. Just thought that was a nice little overlap.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, what do you have? You got Dox, you got Shelley, you got Cormier. They're all loaded on 21 Cavs.
Xander Shelley.
Let me tell you about a team that I'm not buying stock in, and that's going to be the Denver Outlaws. Tough showing for the Outlaws in week 1. Listen, lot of new faces, a lot of new moving parts. It's a young team, but Outlaws come out and they take a 16-11 L to the Chaos after Blaze Reardon goes down pretty early in this game. I think it was before halftime. So Blaze goes down, kind of nicks up his knee a little bit, still not entirely sure exactly what's going on there. So we hope that Blaze is able to come back. He's able to be healthy. He's the best goalie in the world, so it would suck if we lost him for any amount of time. But Austin Kaut comes in, has just a great performance between the pipes. He might have let a couple soft ones go kind of early on, but that's a tough position to step into as a backup goalie. And Austin Kaut, he's one of the he's now the 7th leading goalie in saves all time. So he has over 1,000 career saves. So I mean, he's a great goaltender in his own regard. But when you're playing against Blaze Reardon and he goes out of the game, like it doesn't matter what goalie is stepping in as a backup. Like you're like, all right, thank God, like we can finally really start shooting the piss out of the ball. Like it doesn't matter who's coming in. It's like, all right, at least we don't have to go up against that guy. So Outlaws looked pretty good when they felt like they really had the green light, but just were never able to do much with anything. That offense looked stagnant. They weren't, they were maybe getting looks, but were never really taking some of the best shots. And the Chaos were able to just get good friend of the program, Ian McKay, going. That was the difference maker. Big juice guy there.
The goalie, I don't like to rag on goalies, but the Outlaws goalie did not play well. 26% save percentage. That's just not going to cut it. I thought the Outlaws offense did have some like really good possessions. I thought Brandon O'Neill's like first goal was very nice. I'm kind of with Jordy where I'm not really buying into the Outlaws hype. I also just don't love their uniforms. So I want to see that orange pop.
I gotta say.
Here he comes.
I gotta say something. Just uniforms. The uniforms look so much better in person.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
I'm not even kidding. Sleeper jersey in person, the Chaos was so nice. I loved them. To the actual game itself, yeah, I think that could have been a lot uglier than it was. I do like Scanoni as a goalie. Did play awful. Now I'll tell you someone that I'm buying. I'm buying Cross Ferrara.
No.
Attaboy. Welcome.
So I think that last year I was too tough on the kid because I still I think Dylan Malloy was just a better option. Tim Sudan's career, you're gonna look back and be like, what went wrong? It's gonna be like you didn't let Dylan Malloy play after he went to his fucking best friend's wedding. And that's the hill you wanted to die on. And that started and I picked the Cannons and I really hope there's no PLL Champ Series curse. But you win the PLL Champ Series, Dylan Malloy's MVP, you cut him for your fucking so Cross could start. I think Cross yesterday, going up and down from midfield to attack, he's a great athlete. He also did the coolest thing out of the locker room where he did this little warm up, flipped it on his stick and then just went bar down. And I just looked to whoever's on my right and I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen in the lacrosse field. It was just so swaggy. I'm all in on that kid. But yeah, the Outlaws suck ass really bad. Brendan O'Neill, I don't give a fuck. Look, this isn't even an anti-Logan Wisnowskis thing. Great player, Towarton Award, great shooter. I don't give a fuck what you have to do. Get him running out of the box, trade him, put Brendan O'Neill down low now. And I know even Brendan only had one goal, and I don't even know if he had the greatest camp, but still, you can't just have you can't have a talent like Brennan being like, what if he was at attack? Like your job, pseudo, is like on the line now. So that's where I stand.
Whoa, hot seat.
That's not even a hot seat. I don't even think it's a hot take. You think it's
I
a
don't
hot
think it's hot
take?
take.
Like,
He's on the hot seat.
I don't think it's like a. If you come in last place fucking again with Brendan O'Neill on your roster after you just drafted him number 1, like all eyes on you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean offensively, and again, like they're young, so I don't want to like, but at the end of the day, like offensively, it just looked like they had no idea what they were doing. It looked like they had no idea what they were supposed to do. Like first couple possessions, Brendan's coming out of the box. And it looks like Jared Newman's like pressing out, like the moment he like kind of getting the Caitlin Clark treatment. So they're just making it really hard to get the ball to Brennan to start off that game. And no one else on that field was really able and ready to do anything with it. Like Josh Awada, really good player, probably not, getting thrown into his first pro game and being able to just kind of take over an offense. Listen, Sam Hanley ended up with 4 points on the day with 2 goals and a 2-pointer. I'm still not the biggest Sam Hanley guy in the world. I think that he still think he holds on to the ball a little too long. I don't think that he's like, for as big as he is, I don't think that he uses his size like all that great. Like I wasn't crazy about Sam Hanley early on in this game. Had a better second half, which, first half of the season, like, yeah, you might be a little rusty, whatever. The jury's for me is still out on Sam Hanley, but I'm like not buying Sam Hanley. They just took a lot of like really bad shots early on in that game where they were like, shit, like I'm shooting against Blaze. I have to make sure that I put this in the perfect spot. And like all of them just ended up right in a stick. So early on in that game, it was just really, it just looked like a team that came out there without a game plan. And that's pseudo. And then maybe, a little bit later in the game, they were kind of able to, I guess, make it more of a back and forth. Like the third quarter, they had a really good third quarter. And that's, Sam Hanley got a couple there. That's when Brendan was finally able to get that first one. High bouncers will go. That's also like when you could see that they felt like they had the green light to really let it rip now that Blaze wasn't between the pipes, but then it all just went away again in the fourth quarter. So listen, credit to the chaos, right? Like that offense, they got themselves going a little bit. Josh Byrne got himself going. Ross Scott, great player, real shifty. So, they were young, a lot of new faces too. So it took them a while to really figure out what they wanted to do with the ball. They looked like, they looked fine. Their offense, they didn't look great by any stretch, like not even close to great. They looked like they looked okay. But the defense was great. They got timely saves and the Outlaws just looked not great anywhere.
There was a great assist by that long pole they drafted. I think Dukes knows him, Jake Pacino.
Yeah.
Probably the best LSM in the country.
No, I know. I'm messing with you because Dukes was.
I got it.
Dukes is hoping. I
No,
don't know.
no. Shut up. Before you talk about this, and before this narrative spun, it's crazy. Yeah, he also got I said he's going to be great in transition and off the ground. Now people are every time he gets an assist, yeah, I knew he was going to have a fucking point in the league. Did you also see him miss the over the head check? Did you guys also see him get absolutely cooked with his feet by Shane Knobloch? No, nobody did. And let me say this: Chaos are the team that I couldn't be higher on. A team that I think is going to over exceed expectations. You still have the best goalie in the world. You still have the same defense in the past couple of years. Same LSMs, same short stick D middies. And then now they just have a completely new look offense, which I think Josh Byrne didn't go off yesterday, but he's always going to. He's going to have a game that he goes off. I love having Brian Minikis and Ross Scott on that offense. I think Shane Knobloch's going to become one of the better midfielders in the world. So I'm very high on this Chaos team. I think that they'll definitely exceed expectations. And that's the difference in my mind between a great GM and head coach in this league to somebody that's been struggling. It's Andy Towers and how he's been able to rebuild or reshape compared to Cito. That's
totally agree with everything that you just said there. So great brain on Dukes. One thing that I want to touch on this game, which was kind of an overarching theme for my entire weekend watching that I want to touch on before we move on from it. So at one point in this game, I forget exactly when it was. I think it might have been in the trying to see if I can find it here, but I don't think that they put penalties up in the game flow on the website. But I think it was maybe second or third quarter, kind of somewhere in the middle of the game. Josh Byrne gets dinged with a conduct foul, 30-second conduct foul. So he's sweeping across the field. He's getting held to the high Dickens. No flag on the play. Moves the ball, turns around, looks at Matty Palem. You can see him bark something, right? He said something to Matty Palem. Matty Palem decides, you know what? Enough is enough. Throws the flag, 30-second conduct foul on Josh Byrne. Josh Byrne, one of the best players in the world. He's what was he? I think he was the NLL Finals MVP. He's been one of the best players in the PLL. Like, I think that it's one weekend, but my stock, again, if we're going buying or selling, like I am selling so much Matty Palem stock. Yep. And it sucks because we're the podcast. I feel like we're the podcast that really started the Matty Palem train. We started the hype train. We were the first ones to say that we want to buy Matty Palem jersey tees. I just think that he got way too big for his britches this weekend. I think that it's been a theme that's been progressing over time here. It's just like there were a lot of missed calls. Like the first game between Waterdogs and Archers, like there were like a couple times, like Ethan Walker got murdered. Who else did? There was another, forget if it was a pole or a midi on Waterdog, but either way, like headshots, blatant headshots where you have guys lying on the ground for like seconds after they got hit, just like looking like they're dead out there. Completely missed. You missed that hold on Josh Byrne. Like a lot of missed calls for a guy who wants to walk around the field acting like no one can speak to him. Like that if you question a call, that you're a fucking idiot. So I don't know. Not the greatest weekend for Matty P, in my opinion.
Can I disagree?
I'm with you.
I know you disagree, but here's where I stand with Matty P. I see where you're coming from, like, and especially if I was a coach. And, you know, the high school level, the college level, those are all flags. One thing that I always do personally, if I'm going to complain about refereeing, if they're consistent with the calls, I won't get mad. Now, do they miss wards? For sure. Do they miss, like hits to the head? For sure. But for the most part, they call it pretty fairly both ways. Like, they miss it both ways. So they're consistent with, like, we're just not going to call wards. So they don't call wards at all. So that's kind of where I stand on the missing calls thing. Like, yes, to like the college game, these are blatant fouls. And I thought the Josh Byrne one was 100% a foul as well. But I do think that to get some fairness, I do think that they're consistent in their calls.
But if you're going to miss that call, you can't get pissed at the guy for being pissed off about missing the call. Like you can, like, here's the thing. You didn't make the call, whatever. Like that's what it is. You're staying consistent with it. Fine, whatever. But like, you can't then call a conduct foul because you missed the call and now the player's like fired up about it.
He must have, I do agree with what you're saying there. I'm also like, Josh Byrne's a funny motherfucker. Like he probably had a very good chirp to Matty P.
Right. And that's my issue with Matty P, because Matty P likes to be the guy who has the chirp because he's mic'd up. He knows it's going to be a good clip. He said something like last season about like, quit being a bitch. Like,
yeah,
he's a guy who loves to dish it out. And if you can't, it doesn't matter what Josh Byrne said, unless he's like, I'm going to murder like your entire family and like end your bloodline, which I don't think that was said. Like, it just seems like that was a big like, hey, that was a power trip moment for Matty P. And I'm just really nervous about giving him too much power.
Yeah, I don't know. I do get what you're coming from. In that flag, in that instance, I was like, come on. I do think just, I don't know. I don't want to sound like a hardo, but like if you are a referee, if you let one thing go by a player, like, and you don't, like, if you get called a fucking bitch by Josh Byrne and you don't throw a flag there, then it might set a precedent that everybody could call you a bitch. And then it might look like you're playing favorites.
No, I think that you can play favorites. I think that you can.
Okay. All right, fine. Then I'm with you. Okay, if that's the reason, I'm okay. All right.
Yeah, that was my whole like. If this was like, let me just like, if this was really anyone else on this chaos, like if even if if it was Shane Knobloch, like Shane Knobloch's good, he hasn't been in the league or done enough to like warrant the ability to do or say whatever he wants at. Like there are certain guys who have put in the time, who have put in the hours, and are skilled enough to where they can get away with more. Like I don't think that letting Josh Burns say it opens up Pandora's box to like everyone's motherfucking Matt Palem up and down the field, and you can't do anything about it. Like there are certain guys where you can absolutely be like, hey, like this guy's a superstar. He'll say what he wants. We'll talk about it during the next commercial break, and then it is what it is. Yeah, Ness, it seems like you've been dying to kind of get anything out here about this one.
I just don't like when refs like refs are there. Refs like if players want to get chirpy, like they're playing the game, it's going to get chirpy. Refs are there. The ref. If they want to be the guy that throws a flag on players for chirping, that's fine. But you also can't get chirp. Like they can't. They shouldn't have them. Refs can't have emotions, in my opinion. And that's just what you signed up for. I don't want to be an anti-Matty P guy because it seems like a good personality. Seems like a lot of people like him. Seems like even some of the players say, hey, like sometimes he's easy to deal with you and talk to him. I just don't like when he makes it about him. It's not about the refs. It's about the players. They're just there to be – it's like a jury. Just be there, do your job. You can't be biased.
I disagree with that in a sense in this league. In this league, because if you're like a D1 lacrosse player or a D3, D2, you would have like a changing guards of like referees. So it's like, all right, like this guy might kind of know you from like one game, but you can change your opinion. When you get the same fucking referee for 4 years, like relationships are made. Like it's like the NBA. Like people like players have relationships with like Scott Foster. College basketball players have relationships with Teddy Valentine. Like I do think that in professional sports, relationships with referees are made. Like there are.
That's fair, but I don't think he can. I just don't like when he makes it about him. Like it's not about him. When he's like I legitimately like so like he's kind of chirpy and he has like the one-liners and like to me it's like just report the penalty and move on. The bitch and he brings up the bitch clip and that's one that irks me. So I'm like, dude, I've never played the professional level, but I'm sure as a professional lacrosse player having a ref call you a bitch, you're like, what the fuck? And they can't do anything about it.
And so where I land on that one is similar to where just be consistent. Like I don't have a problem. Like I loved it early on. I don't have a problem with Matt Palem being a personality and like letting all that shit fly. My problem then becomes if you can't take it on the receiving end. So like if you're going to be that personality, if you're going to be that guy that like gives it to the players, gives it to the coaches and like all this and that, like you just got to be able to take it back. And this weekend kind of showed me that he can't, and that's why I'm selling some stock in Matty P. If a couple weeks go by and you kind of see that he's eased up on some of those, and he's getting the calls right, and feel free to let it fly. But I don't know, it's just a tough look when you're missing some calls, and then you get mad at someone else chirping you back when that's kind of been your thing the past couple of years.
Last point, I agree.
Dude, you've been moving all over this pod.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
We've gotten such a great core.
Podcast from the phone in an empty house. I went into the fridge. I had some chips. I'm like putting my phone down. I'm like eating. I'm coming back to the combo, like listening. Like podcasting from the phone fucking rocks. Matty P though, I think this is just one over. I think I might have had this thought last year. I think, and it gets unfair for Matty P. I think every single call that gets missed, or any time that a player has a complaint, they go straight to Matty P. No other fucking ref. Like whenever there's a missed call, it's always like Matty P missed it. Like so, my heart, like Matty P is just referees in general. Like when you get mad, like the Josh Burns missed call, I think was on another referee to make that call because Matty P was on the other side of the field. But since the other ref missed it, Josh Burns goes over to chirp Matty P. So. That's all I have. And I also think that Matty P did that to himself. But that's my last point about it.
I'm good on that one.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm fine with that.
All right, cool. So I got to run here in a minute or two. So just real quick, that Atlas Whip Snakes game. Anything on that one? It looked like Yeah, I mean, Whip Snakes took I mean, what was it? I feel like it was like 10-1 at one point. Am I right?
It was an absolute shellacking at one point.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did think the Whip Snakes were going to come back for a second, but the one thing I will say, there's definitely question marks surrounding the Whip Snakes and what they'll be able to do now and in the future, and they have some decisions to make in goal, whatnot, blah blah blah. One thing I completely agreed with. I know people are saying like, "Oh, how do you cut Will Manny?" First off, Will Manny didn't get cut. Will Manny chose not to be on the 25-man roster. He wanted to be on the 19-man roster. Stagnita said that. Second off, when it comes down to what they were missing, like they tried to replace Jay Carlson with Will Manny, and it somewhat worked out. He led the league in points last year. But Stags felt like he missed an absolute like initiator, something that could beat you off the draw, which is what TJ Malone can do. TJ Malone went 3-3. The reason that the Whip Snakes lost yesterday was not because of TJ Malone. It's because Kyle Burnlore was stuck in Ohio for the first half of that game. And like again, like this is like what you get from like the PLLs. Like a lot of these goalies, you know, are coaching high school lacrosse, they're coaching college lacrosse, they're playing box lacrosse. It takes them some time to get adjusted, but once they get going, like in week 5, they turn into the like holy shit, they're good again. So that's just my bigger thought on the game. But yeah, I think TJ Malone is going to be a fucking really good player.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that I think I slept on the Atlas a little too much looking at this season, and we were all so high on Schellenberg. I guess I should have been wide awake. I think they're just really fucking good. Kind of like we hinted at. There's a reason. There's a reason they're 2-0 with two basically pretty handily beat downs. So we'll see. I'm awake on them now. I'm awake on them now.
Yeah. And the thing that Shelly that I always thought like with that like why it would work on the offensive end with them is like Shelly makes other players around him better. When you pair him up with Xander, Peyton, whoever you want, and then like Jeff Teed on the other end, yeah, that offense was always going to work. I'm holding out. I overreact to week 1 all the time, but if I had to leave week 1, I'd be like, yeah, they're championship good.
Yeah,
I want
especially if
Waterdogs. What's up?
And especially if Troutner keeps playing the way that he's been playing, and even if he's not playing the way that he's been playing, then guess who you have coming in replacement for him?
How long
finalists?
You think Troutner's guaranteed? Do you think they got to give him the start this weekend, or do they have a bye because they played 2?
I think that I thought that if anything, Liam would have played yesterday, but I guess Pressler said that like Liam hasn't slept in 5 days. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's respectable.
I mean, I think regardless, you got to go Troutner as your one until you don't. Question, and I know that they brought it up on the broadcast at one point. I noticed it before Boyle brought it up on the pod, but I mean, you guys are a couple goalies. Can we talk about how long Troutner's shaft is? And is that like I know that goalies cut down the shafts now where it's basically like the size of a short stick, but Troutner's look like way longer than a goalie shaft that comes off the rack. Like it almost looked like he was using a cut down pole than anything. What was that?
It's preference. Some people. Like I think some people look at it like it's the way that they could throw or get it over the top. Like I think he might come off their stick better, from what I understand. And I also think some people like it longer. So like if you're taking a bouncer and you're swooping under, like the shaft has a chance to get it. That's why some people wear sweatpants as well. But what were you saying?
I hated a long stick.
Yeah.
I was pretty surprised at how like long it looked. It might have just been like I don't know. I'd like to get like I wish I knew exactly how long it was because I think goalie shafts are don't think they do much. So I wish if I ever get the chance, the first thing I'm going to ask him is what is in your mind the benefit of the longer shaft? I mean, it definitely.
Will the audio work for that one?
Maybe it's. I don't know if there's a max length on goalie shafts. I'm not sure.
There's not. Remember the goalie went out with the long pole?
Yeah, but that counts as one of your poles technically, does it not? I don't know.
That would be a really like the goalie going out with the long pole like in the final 2 minutes when you're trying to get the ball back.
You just get 4 other poles still.
I guess we got to get the rules committee on that one.
Yeah, like
We all
that's
just paused. Bro frozen.
yeah.
I don't want to look it up either now.
All right. Well, you know what? We can look it up before the next episode. We'll get a week 2 preview show coming out soon. I got to run to practice. We got first round of the state tournament coming up tomorrow afternoon. So got to get to practice. Get the boys dialed and ready.
For Alaska.
Oh yeah, Duke's head to Alaska.
Heading to Alaska, straight to week 2, Charlotte.
Wow, you're probably the only person in the world going from Alaska to Charlotte.
I know, and I actually probably will do an episode of the Crease Dive from Alaska. So maybe I'll do it with like a polo boat.
First Lacrosse podcast ever recorded in Alaska.
Dude, that might be holy shit. We should do that live.
I'm in.
All right, let's lock it in. All right, well, boys, yeah, I'm gonna run, so you guys are gonna close this one out, but we're gonna keep it low to high until the day we die. We out.
We're good with that. Peace. You can end it.
Oh, works for me.
All right, guys. Thanks.